Hello and welcome to another edition of What Does the Giraffe Say with me, Kathleen Retourne. Today I'm very fortunate to have with me Bea from Elephant Havens. He's actually one of the co-founders of the organisation, which is based in Botswana. So Bea, I'm going to hand over to you. If you could just quickly say a little bit about yourself and how you started the foundation.
Well, thank you very much, Kathleen. I would like to take this opportunity to actually thank the Department of Wildlife for giving us this opportunity to operate, to run and operate the elephant orphanage on the outskirts of Maun in Botswana. And I would also like to thank our supporters all over the world. If it wasn't of them, we wouldn't be where we are today. Then my name is Boago Poloko in full. I usually go by B, and I'm one of the co-founders of Elephant Havens Wildlife Foundation. And I come from a really big family, 8 siblings, and I'm the last born. At the bottom, at the bottom. And I've actually have my fiance, and I've got 2 boys. When we go to how Elephant Havens came about, it's a very long story, but I'll cut the story short. It actually came from dedication, from love for our wildlife and our people in Botswana. So about 3 years back, when I was still working for another company in the Okavango Delta, there was an orphan that I picked up, and so it brought a lot of confusion, a lot of conflicts between the people that I was working with. And I would like to say that is the moment when I decided to actually think about having an elephant orphanage on the outskirts of Maun, and mainly for education purposes. It's very important for our children, our grandchildren, to learn about these animals. So that is the most important thing to me, to make sure, because they are the future leaders, they need to be brought on board about their wildlife.
And starting as an orphanage from scratch must have been hugely challenging. What was the process? How did you go around getting it set up, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Well, it wasn't easy. I have to acknowledge that I met really wonderful people, Deborah and Scott Jackson, Deborah Stevens and Scott Jackson, who are based in Dallas, and these are the people that I actually approached in the first time, and because I knew they love Botswana, they love the people, they love our wildlife, and when I approached them, I told them what I wanted to do. And it didn't take long to convince them, but they didn't know I was actually asking them to also be on board, and I was actually asking for them to help me with funding, and it wasn't easy. We were able to get the piece of land, and we had to go through the government, to get all the permits. It took us about 9 months to get all the paperwork done, and to me, because I've raised an orphan before we started Elephant Havens, so I thought it was easy, because it was difficult, but I didn't realize that when you now dedicate all your time to caring for these orphans, and within 3 or 4 days, you could have calls from different areas that there is an orphan roaming, and you'd have to go and pick it up and bring it to the orphanage. So I thought it was just going to be easy, but it is not easy. Things like elephants being lactose intolerant, these are some of the things that I would have really loved to know in the past before we started the orphanage here, that these are some of the things that we needed to know, and have a proper plan for them before we started.
And on the flip side of that, have you had a defining moment where you've realized that this is why you do this job? You know, is there a special time in your heart where you understand that this is your calling?
Well, it goes back to late 2009, early 2000, yeah, late 2009, early 2010, when I joined the Abu herd. You know, I've always loved wildlife. I've always loved elephants. I've always wanted to work with elephants. And at that moment when I joined the Abu herd, and one of the elephants that we had there, Kathy, she is a huge female elephant that when you see her from a distance, you would actually think it's a bull. And she was the very first elephant that I met and started working with. And that was the turning point for me, where I thought, this is where I'm going to go, and this is where my career is going to be. And you know, having to start the elephant orphanage in Man, it's you know, to me, I feel at home. I feel like I'm in the right place, and I feel like it's the right thing to do, not for myself, but for these elephants and for our community.
Yeah, I mean, we're so glad you do. You're doing some incredible work. Obviously, we can see some of the baby elephants behind you. Can you tell us about their background, how they ended up coming to you, how many you have at the moment, a bit of history on them?
Yes, and maybe first let me try and highlight that these babies are going to be with us for a period of time, maybe about 5 years at the nursery, and then another 4 years at when we're going to do a soft release in a place where there will be less human contact, where it's a transition for them to learn that they are going to be independent, and finally we're going to release them back to the wild. And I'll be very proud because you bring them in as tiny little elephants and they grow, and you always there watching them grow, change of behavior, and eventually them becoming adults and becoming moms and dads. So, and it's the hardest part as well, because when you release them, it's more like sending your child to a boarding school. But I'll be very proud that one day I get to see these elephants roaming in the wild of Botswana. So I will introduce you to our babies, and we'll start with the little one here. She's the youngest of them all. Her name is Tsapiso, and Tsapiso means promise. She came from the Okavango Delta in the Panhandle, and we believe her mom and the other sibling were killed by farmers, because where we found her, in that area, there were two dead elephants, and one looked like a mom, and then the other one was a youngster that we believe it was the other sibling. And in most cases when we go for rescues, if we get there and estimate that the baby could be maybe 6 months or older, we do a 3-day assessment, because our hope is when we find these babies, we can help them find their mothers or their families. So we'll do a 3-day assessment, and after 3 days, and there's no sign for an elephant or for a head of elephant willing to come and pick them up, the wildlife officer will then, approve them as orphans, and we will be allowed to pick them up and bring them to the nursery. But in her case, she was very young, and it was an emergency situation, and you don't know how long she has been by herself, and by the time you find her, she'll probably be living on body fats. So it was emergency. We had to pick her up and bring her straight home. And when she came here, she was really stressed, traumatized, dehydrated, and she couldn't stay still. She was very angry, trying to get out of the boma, banging her head on the poles, and we used to call her crazy girl. But 3-4 months back, we used to call her crazy girl, and right now she's just a sweet little elephant
I
and
can
she's
see,
doing really
yes,
good.
very
Yeah,
chilled.
she came in weighing about 150 kg. She's now on 300 kgs. So she's done really well. And right next to her is the little boy, and he's the only boy in the herd. His name is Tsulofelo, and Tsulofelo means hope. And he is 1 year, 7 months. And the little one is 1 year, 3 months. So Tsulofelo came from the Panhandle in a village called Eretsa, next to a research camp for another conservation trust that operates in that area. They saw him for a couple of days before they reported him to wildlife, and wildlife reported to us, and we took off, went out, and for the first 2 days we couldn't find him, but they told us that there was one of his favorite sports. So every morning when we drive out, we would go to his favorite sport first. But on the third day, in the morning around 7:30, we drove out and he was straight under a sycamore fig tree, picking up on the figs. And the wildlife officer was there. We did a 2 day assessment. He tried to join another head of elephants, and they pushed him out. And on the second day, the officer said, well, he declared him as an orphan, and we picked him up and brought him home. And right now he's doing really, really good. He's a good food eater. He loves his food. And I will go to this one before I get to the famous Mamotsi. So this one, her name is Bonolo, and Bonolo means calm. She is the oldest, but she's not the matriarch. Usually in a herd of elephants, the oldest female will always be the matriarch. But in this case, because Mamotsi over there has been here the longest, so everyone who came after her, she's the one who takes responsibility to take them around, show them around, and help them emotionally to heal. And Bonolo, like I said, Bonolo means calm. She's 2 years, 10 months. She came from a settlement called Sechenje, that is on the Panhandle as well, just before you get to Skondoboro. And we really don't know what happened to her mother, but she was reported directly to us by the community members that saw her going from house to house looking for water and food. And we went out, did an assessment, 3 days. We couldn't find a family for her, and we picked her up and brought her home. And she's really doing good. The first time when she arrived, she wouldn't let anyone get behind her, and that's a clear sign that something bad may have happened to her from behind. Quite often, some of the local community people, when they see these orphans, they're scared of them. They've told bad stories about elephants, and the first thing they want to do when they see them is to hurt them. So we believe something may have happened to her from behind. Could be being chased by someone, could be being chased by dogs. So she wasn't comfortable letting anyone get behind her, but she's calmed down quite quickly and really well because she's been treated, and the elephant handlers love her and they give her the best. And now you can easily just walk around her. And last but not least, this is Mamotsi, our very first orphan. Like I said earlier, it took us about 9 months to get the permit from the Department of Wildlife to run and operate an elephant orphanage. But on the 18th of December 2018, the wildlife director called me and said the permits were ready. And on the 20th of December 2018, we were called from Mamotsi in the village of Skondomboro that there was an orphan elephant roaming around in the community. We went out, we did a two-day assessment, and on the 23rd of December 2018, we had brought Mamotsi home. So she was our Christmas present. And she is a very sweet elephant. I've worked with so many elephants, and I believe she is the sweetest. Like Deborah always says, you can put a 2-month-old baby right between her legs, and she'll just walk around the baby and do nothing to them. So these are all our 4 babies. And like I said, one day these elephants, and if you look at them, they're all around the same age. And that is a good thing, because when we release them, they will go at the same time. So that means they'll stay together, especially the females. They will have their own babies and start their own herd together. And Tsulofelo will eventually become solitary, or he will start off by joining a bachelor herd and eventually become solitary.
And obviously, I think it must be obviously very rewarding work that you're doing, but also incredibly tiring, because they need around-the-clock care, right?
They need 24/7 care. You know, we keep an eye. There's always someone with them 24/7, day and night. For the tiny little ones, especially when they come in, you have to sleep with them. If you leave them by themselves, they feel rejected, and they can actually just give up, you know, from you walking away from them. So you have to stay with them 24/7, and it takes dedication, it takes love for these beautiful animals, because the idea is, we spoke about education earlier. The idea is to educate our local communities, and these guys would become the ambassadors for those in the wild. You know, when people come here, get to meet them, get to understand them better, and also the benefit that they get from elephant havens through these elephants. You know, our lovely supporters all over the world, when they donate to us, we make sure some of the donations goes to the community, so they know that the donations comes from these elephants. So it makes our local people to treat them better. And once they encounter a wild elephant, what comes to their mind first is this baby. You know, when they met them, the relationship they have with them.
So that feeds quite nicely into my next question, because I know that as well as the work that you do with the elephants, you also do some stuff with the community as well, particularly during these kind of difficult times. Can you tell us a little bit about what work you do within the community?
You know, we try and do a lot of work for our communities, starting off from, you know, like at the moment when the Okavango River, the floods are just arriving now. In the past, the community that we live with, they used to drink from the same rivers that the elephants will drink from. So there is that competition for water. So we drilled a borehole, like a water well, for our community. We are also in the process of getting a school bus for the village, you know, for the school kids, to transport them from home to school, because.
Oh, sorry, I'm just going to say your mic's gone a bit quiet.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
So I was talking about that, you know, our school kids that lives around where Elephant Havens is, they walk from here to school, and it's about 10 kilometers. And in between, there are elephant corridors where they pass. So sometimes the school kids can't get to school. So we are in the process of getting them a school bus that will take them from here to school and back home. And I mean, we're working closely with the farmers, you know, with farmers associations, and we're trying to come up with ideas that will help the farmers and as well as elephants. Because, you know, when the farmers plow, the elephants come in and raid their farms. So we're looking at, you know, if we could close in, we call it cluster fencing, close in some farms and you know, put an electric fence or bee fence or chili. These are some of the things that we are looking forward to start doing in the villages or the communities that we operate in.
Excellent. Okay, well, I've just got one more question left, and then I'll check onto the Facebook site to see if we've got any questions. So if anyone watching back home would like to put a question to B, then just pop it underneath the comments section, and I'll have a look, and we'll read it out, and B will respond for you. So
Okay.
B, finally from me, how are you coping with COVID at the moment? Obviously, it's having a big impact, especially on tourism, for example, and also on people's health. How is that impacting your ability to do your work, and how can people back home help?
Well, it's the COVID-19 has affected almost everyone, and it has affected us as well, um, because we can't actually live from donations that comes from abroad. We also want the project to also sustain itself. Having people to come visit our babies and leave a donation for them that can actually help us to pay the salaries of the elephant handlers, to pay the vets that comes to if we have a sick elephant, to that also the money goes back to the community. So since the 2nd of April, when we had lockdown, we had closed, and up until now we haven't opened. So we haven't seen those donations through people who are coming to visit our babies. And of course, the donations is as well. They've been slow, and that is a sign that everyone has been affected by COVID. So yeah, it has really affected us. 2020 was supposed to be a very busy year for us. We had a lot of people who wanted to come and visit us and come to the elephant orphanage, and they had to cancel their trips to come meet our babies.
Yeah, it's a hard time for everyone at the moment, isn't it? As well, I mean, someone's asking the question that are you doing within your community work? Are you doing any help with communities during this tough time with any like food donations or things like that?
Yes, we have been helping our local communities with food. We've gone in the communities and try and find out who are in need the most, and we've been giving at least 10 families every month. We would give them food, and that's I would say that's thanks to our supporters who, when we told them that the COVID has made other people's hungry, they were there and responded immediately and donated some money for us to be able to help these families.
I think, yeah, what you're saying there as well, it just highlights just people's generosity. And when everyone's going through such a tough time at the moment, and people are pulling together and trying to help each other out. And it's a great kind of way of seeing the human spirit through that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, so that's all the questions we've got. I've also just, little birdie told me that you're getting married next week.
Yes, I'm getting married next week, and I am very excited about it. I cannot wait, and we'll definitely share pictures in our Facebook page and maybe in our Instagram page.
Definitely do so. I know everyone back home will certainly want to see it and take part in that day with you.
Yes, and one thing that I would really want to appeal to our supporters, that I can one thing that I would really like to appeal to our supporters, especially when we go back to what we call normal, hopefully when the COVID is over, when our tiny little babies arrive, we give them the formula milk called Leptomil. So it's very difficult to find. We cannot find it anywhere in Botswana, anywhere in Southern Africa. The last order we got came from Egypt and France. So I would like that if we go back to normal and we open borders and people start traveling, and for those who are going to maybe come to Botswana, if one can purchase this Leptomil can, and we will have a place at the airport where one can leave it there, and we will go and pick it up. I would like for people to make sure it has this LF, that is lactose free, because elephants are lactose intolerant. That can be very helpful and make a huge change and save a lot of lives of baby elephants.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Someone's asking if it would be possible for you to walk towards the lab and show us a bit about the laboratory, because I know that we spoke previously before going live. You told me a little bit about it, but I think people back
I
home
will
would
take
be
you through to the lab.
Mhm.
It's also the lab was funded by the Dallas Zoo, who we are in partnership with. This is the lab. You can see we've got our microscope here, and we've got our centrifuge over there. So this lab has been really helpful, because in the past, before we had this lab, it was difficult for our babies. You know, when the babies arrive, we would do blood samples, we would do urine samples, we do fecal samples, and we will send the samples into town. And sometimes they can't do anything in Maune, and they have to send them all the way to the city in Gabs, or even outside to South Africa. And by the time we receive the results, it's too late for our babies. But since we had this lab, you know, when the baby arrives, we do samples, we get the samples, and we have answers within 30 minutes. So that direct us to what to give to the baby and how to treat them. So the lab has been really helpful, and had made our life easier, and had saved our elephants.
It's a game changer.
It's a game changer.
We've got one more question coming through, and someone's asking if the community, the local communities, do they support the work that you're doing with Elephant Havens?
The fact that we have already done some projects for our communities, we have seen change. That is, you know, the change in how they are treating the wild elephants. We have seen the community coming here and tell us, we believe the land that you have here is not big enough for you to be able to have the nursery here and do the soft release here. And the local community came to us and say, there is a big piece of land that we will support you to go and apply for from the Department of Lands. And it's about 332 hectares piece of land, which has been allocated to us right now as we speak. And this was because of the community that we work with, that we operate around, and they support us in that way.
Oh, that's great news. Okay, right, then let's wrap this up. Again, thank you very much for taking the time to talk with us. Really appreciate it. I hope everyone back home enjoyed the interview as much as I did. And the interview is going to remain on the site, so feel free to watch it back later. And if you want to ask any other questions, just again, pop it on the comments section, and Elephant Havens will be able to comment and get back to you on that. But from me, goodbye. Do you want to say goodbye, Bea?
Thank you very much, Kathleen, and
No
thank you
problem.
so much to everyone who was watching us live, and we will always be here to answer their questions, and looking forward to having a lot of people to come visit us and get to meet our babies. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.